And we're on. Okay.
Okay, so I'm unmuted. That's great. So today we're going to do a loop trail from Old Mill Road and swinging by the Dodge Cemetery and then back to Old Mill Road and another side trail. I'll show you the map in just a second, but in case you're not aware, that Black Island has 9 different cemeteries scattered around the island, and this is one of the more secluded ones, although very easy to get to if you know where it is. And you'll see as we go along, there's at least 2 ways to get to this cemetery, which to me always looks like a secret garden. So with that, I'll show you the map where we are going. So this is Old Mill Road, traveling along here, and as you know, that sort of connects West Side Road all the way over to near Smiling Through. And there are 3 different ways that you can get off of Old Mill Road into the trail systems. There's lots of trails here. There's Nathan Mott Park, there's the Enchanted Forest, there's Turnip Farm, there's Lafredo Loop, Carry Lot, Martin Fields. So although I'll be showing you and we'll be going on a loop, I'll be pointing out that you can make this walk as short or as long as you want. And you don't have to go this way, but this makes for a really nice winter walk if you happen to be here, because it's fairly protected. And like I said, if you get cold, you can do a shorter loop, and if you are in your stride, you can do a longer loop, and I'll show you how you can do that. So we'll start right here at 1. There's an opening, a greenway opening, and then we'll go along into it. We'll get to a point here where you could take a loop and go somewhere else. And then we'll go along and another place where you could go somewhere else. You can come out, and eventually you can come out to this area here, which is where the Dodge Cemetery is. And then you can, as of this year, go down the road and take a little shortcut, new path, and come out into the Martin Fields here, and then go back to your beginning spot. And right across the street or road is another Greenway Trail access point that takes you to a pretty much a straight but beautiful walk, which I'm calling the Wood Trail, but it hasn't really gotten a proper name just yet. So, and we'll go this way out to Cherry Tree Hill, which some people call Coonamus Road, and we come out fairly near Rodman's Hollow. Okay, with that, we'll go to the beginning spot, which looks like this. It's well marked as a Greenway Trail, walkers only, lots of good precautions, but no real name. like Turnip Farm, that's further down the road, Enchanted Forest, further down the road. I think we should have a contest for naming this entry point. So, but as you go in, you'll see the first part of the trail is pretty open, and this first photo is very indicative of what this whole loop is going to be like. There are places where the path is very open and airy, and other places where it's more like walking through the shrublands, where it's not too confining, but it's definitely not open and airy. And the blackberry scene has become a theme in all of these since the beginning. The very first of these Zoom on Nature, we were looking at blackberry blossoms, and we've been through green blackberries and greening to red, and now we have solid red blackberries and even a black blackberry. So the season is upon us. So as you go down that beginning path, you'll come to the one place where there's a boardwalk, and that's because right under here is a stream bed, which is, let me tell you, very dry right now, but it's really the only place on this entire walk that you get anywhere near fresh water. It's a very, basically it's a very dry, sandy path system. It's because we're up high and we're in really the morainal grasslands and the morainal deposit. So it's a very sandy, dry, poor soil, which is good for some things. But nearby, when there's a little water, you have this shad tree. This is our shadbush. I call it a shadbush, but sometimes it's as big as a tree, which this is. And again, very distinctive. Shad is very distinctive look, multiple trunks often with these big gray green blotches of lichens on them, very smooth trunk. It's a really quite a beautiful tree. And this one, I really was taken by its twists and turns. There are not, as you probably know, not a lot of trees around Block Island other than what's near people's homes, and big trees that are older trees are few and far between. On this particular walk, we're going to see some very interesting trees, few and far between, but trees nonetheless. Now I've learned, this actually just in doing these and having to pay really close attention to what I'm going to be presenting, that whenever just this spring, really summer, I've learned that whenever you see this ribbing of roots in the pathway, there is a maple tree and nearby. And usually I've got my head down looking at my footing. I see these and then I look up and I see what is a fairly large maple tree right there. And again, a good close look at its leaves, definitely maple. These are the smaller, sometimes, there's a lot of variety in the red maples. When I see the smaller leaves, I tend to think of them as more swamp red maple. But there's, as I say, lots of variety. Some of the leaves are much bigger, but I really like the small, delicate ones. They really turn a beautiful red in the fall. And again, we've been seeing lots of things. These are natives. These are native berries on Block Island, not edible for people, but birds definitely love both of these. This is the arrowwood, which again, we saw early on in the summer as white panicles of flowers. Now they're starting to green up as nice solid green berries and even a few purple ones. And they will eventually be all very dark blue hard berries, which stay on quite late into the fall and do produce food in the late fall season. And of course, we have poison ivy berries. And a lot of times people aren't aware that there are poison ivy berries, but they are quite luscious this year. And this is almost a tree, this particular poison ivy plant. This is about shoulder height for me, which not that tall, but it's not a trailing vine, let's say. But these berries are amazing. Here, another big clump of them. And they're just as rash-inducing as any other part of this plant. But birds do eat them. So they do, and it is a native vine. So there are the native berries. And what's next? So as you go across, as I mentioned, this path has lots of little offshoots, and I will say it's very well signed. So you can sort of keep going where you actually want to go. And you can see by the wear on the path that this is not a lush part of the island. It's very thin soil. It wears away quite easily. Now this little sign is pointing back towards the way we've come, and it says Old Mill Road. And then this sign up here where the paths diverge tells you can go to the right, Turnip Farm or Nathan Mott Park will take you off that way, or as we're going to keep doing, stay to the left where we're headed to the Dodge Cemetery. But you would also be able to take another path to the Lafredo. So any one of these, you could take one of these, do a loop, come back to this part, and just go back to where you started. So many options in this particular area. Oops, wrong way. As I mentioned, the grasses or the land is really quite spare and bare and thin. So we have a couple of microhabitats. One is, as we go up, as we went up to the left of that previous picture, you would have seen on the left, you're going uphill to this little knob. And this is a little morainal grassland. And they're indicative of again, very thin, poor soils, but they produce plants that are sort of diagnostic for this particular ecosystem type, which again is globally rare, the morainal grassland. There's lots of the warm weather grasses in here. There are some goldenrods coming. And there's also quite a bit of reindeer moss, which I did not photograph because right now it's been so dry, it's like crumpled up ash, but I try never to step on that at this time of year. So we'll see in a minute, but here we've had the chance, we have to take it right after we pass this merino grassland, we come to another point where you have to choose, and you can either go off to the Lafredo loop that way or stay left to the cemetery. Now, the merino grasslands I just mentioned have, again, one of their keystone plants is this hawkweed. It's a mouse ear hawkweed. And as I've mentioned before, the difference between a hawkweed and a dandelion, which look very similar. I don't know, can you hear that plane? Yeah,
Yeah, we can.
I'll wait for the plane to go off. In the hawkweed, the basal leaves, the leaves are on the base of both hawkweeds and dandelions, but the basal leaves of the hawkweed are what they call entire. In other words, they're smooth. They're not ragged edged. They're not lobed. It's a very smooth, entire leaf. And some of these you can see, or you can get the idea that it's kind of fuzzy underneath, fuzzy. So these look like little mouse ears. Thus, this particular hawkweed is the mouse ear hawkweed. And then if I can move this over here, let's see if that works. Is this working for you? Did it move over to, good. So this is the dandelion. You see its basal leaves are toothed and they're lobed and they go in and out, and so they are not entire. So that's always what you want to look for when you're looking for hawkweed or dandelion. So here's a tree I came upon as I was walking along the path to the Dodge Cemetery. And I was like, that's funny out there in the open. What is this? And I went in a little bit and took a good handful of leaves and pulled it down. And this is an American horse chestnut. And we have several of these large horse chestnuts around the island. This one is fairly small by those standards. It's probably only about 20 feet. I'm not that great on my vertical distance estimate, but definitely small compared to the one at the Old Town Inn or the Sprague Farm or some of the others that are around the island over by on the island. So, but very typical, and I'm sure a bird dropped the chestnut here, and there it grew. This is in the buckwheat family. It's an American horse chestnut. And as you know, or as you may know, they do well on Block Island. So a surprise though to find it here. And then I found this little small tree. It was kind of covered over in brambles and blackberries and other things. And I thought, wow, what is that? And I know you can't answer, but think about it, if anybody knows what this is, I'll be impressed. It's a quince, which is probably, again, dropped by a seed. There are a few quinces around the island, different places, mostly in people's dooryards. It's not a wild plant, but there's a nice, robust quince plant, and it's quite well fruited right now. So I sort of hesitate to show anybody where it is. It's a great fruit in late in fall to make a quince jam, which is a particularly beautiful color. And they don't ripen until very late in the fall. And generally the rule is not to pick them until after you've had your first frost. And even then they're not ripe. They ripen after they're picked. So we'll see. I'll be monitoring this one for scientific purposes, of course. I'll report back. So, but that was a kind of a delight to go along this path. And now we've had a giant maple and a horse chestnut, and now a quince. Lots of wonderful herb flowers, but I will say, as I was walking, I go, wow, I'm not seeing much. I saw a few of these yarrow, which we've seen before. Again, yarrow, fairly low and with these very frilly leaves, very diagnostic. And then I thought, but there's not much else blooming. And then I went around the corner, and here was this tansy, and not a lot, but a few plants of it. It's considered an invasive. It is an introduced, not an invasive to us. It's an introduced species, and some places it's taken over, and people, are always trying to fight it back in their garden or in their fields that they'd rather be growing, something else. But it's a beautiful plant, and it's in full bloom right now. And once I had my eye open to it, I saw it in 3 other places around the island, just off the paved roads. So it is definitely in full bloom right now. It's in the composite family, in other words, with the daisies and the other multi-rayed flowers, because each one of these little heads is a whole bunch of flowers, and it will open up a little bit more, these little button things. So quite a beautiful plant, and also has very frilly leaves, different than yarrow. They're not that closely related. They're not the same family or anything, but I was surprised to find a little bit of beauty when I thought, oh, where are all the wildflowers? And then we came to another ecosystem type. This is a meadow. This is a great meadow. And the path kind of goes along the edge here, and then it makes a corner and goes up towards here, and then the path continues over here in this dark hole. But this is a wonderful meadow. And again, a lot of what you're seeing in here are different goldenrods. And I will say that I did this walk last year at the end of August, and it was much more, there were more things in bloom. The goldenrods were in bloom, and the blackberries were lush. Well, actually, they were just past, but things were starting to change. I think we're sort of in a time period where the early summer things are over, and now the late and early fall things are starting to grow. So, but it's when you look closely, even though there's not a lot blooming in here, there's a lot of activities, a lot of dragonflies in there, and there's a lot of bird activity. I heard at least catbird, towhee, American robin, common yellowthroat, yellow warbler, all in this area. So great habitat and beautiful to look at. And again, we different, not a wetland, not a morainal grassland, but a wonderful meadow. As we went along, I did spy on the side of that meadow this bird hopping around, and I got a halfway decent photo given my little camera. That is a young common yellowthroat. And the other 2 pictures of yellowthroat obviously weren't taken on the walk. This is the male, but I thought great opportunity to talk about the difference between the male and the female. This is the male common yellowthroat, which you can tell. First of all, it has a yellow throat, but it has this black mask. And it's always hard to see a dark eye in a black plumage, but it's there really, and it's wide open. And the males have also this nice band of sort of white gray, which as the bird gets older, this gets wider. So this is not an old bird, not a young bird either, but that's an adult male common yellowthroat. And over here, the female, it's much duller looking. It's more of a browny, little bit of olive in its, but very strong yellow breast and throat. So that's the female. It's one of the 3 types of warblers that nest on Block Island. And then I'm going to try to zoom in on this one, maybe. Let's see if I can do it. So this is definitely a young bird. It was flocking around with 2 others, which were probably all the same nestmates or nestlings. And it's definitely a yellowthroat. But you see right here where it's getting dark. This is likely, although if I was banding this bird, I could not say for sure, it is likely a young male. And this looks to me like the beginning of its black mask starting in. But wonderful habitat where whoops, a little too far there, for the common yellowthroat along the side of that meadow. And then as we went through that sort of dark sort of path after being out in the open, we come in, and it's a very short point from dipping into that corner of that meadow into the path and coming out and seeing the beginning of the Dodge Cemetery. And so you come in, and it's here it is, and it's full, sort of as much of a view as I could get of it. Beautiful stoned wall, wonderful wrought iron gate, and inside not plenty, but oops, that's not what I want to do. Plenty of headstones. Now, what's interesting about the Dodge Cemetery, and there used to be a sign on the wall next to the gate, but it's not there anymore, and I'm not sure what happened to it. All the cemeteries are maintained by the town of New Shoreham. And then some of the cemeteries, especially this one, have extra watching over by local families who still have relatives in this cemetery. Now, as I started to say, it's called the Dodge Cemetery, but most of the stones in there say Rose, have the last name Rose. Now, this is Block Island, and this is an old cemetery, and Dodgers and Roses and Balls and Stedmans, well, they all intermix quite a bit. So Dodgers and Rose Cemetery. And you can tell by a couple of American flags in there, there are a few veterans in this cemetery. So, but I just love this old wall. And then almost all the way around the cemetery, these giant trees, which are ailanthus. It's also known as the Tree of Heaven, which seems like a particularly good name for the trees in the cemetery. And the ailanthus, again, is an introduced tree, but produces a lot of shade, grows very tall. Interestingly, this is a tree that sort of like the bayberry in that male and female trees, the male and the female parts are not on the same tree. So one tree will be a male ailanthus and another will be the female. And you're probably used to seeing these, a big stand of these at the end of Bushlot Hill, at the end of Corn Neck Road, and various places around the island. So, but seems sort of appropriate. Makes a nice, shady, peaceful little cemetery being watched over by the Tree of Heaven. And then if you're inside, you can see the wall is breaking down quite a bit, but what we're looking at here is the road that comes into. So we've just come in from the other side, the path, and then there's the cemetery area, and then we'll be going out the dirt road that leads to West Side Road. But you see this wall is fragile, and it is definitely, going to need some care in the next few years. And if you look, this is the road that we're looking at here from inside the cemetery, and this is the road as you look down the road towards West Side Road. And if you go down this road a fair bit, you'll see, if you're looking and you know what you're looking for, you will see this path. It was just cut this spring, and it's a short path that connects to the Martin trails and fields. It's more than a deer path. It's clearly been cut, but it's not marked in any way. And it's very typical looking of the paths that you see around Block Island that are coming from a private property intersecting a main greenway trail. So in other words, it's kept, it's open, it's clearly been cleared, but it's not totally welcoming and pristine. So you have to sort of go in on faith. And I knew it was here somewhere, and I found it, and I was pretty sure this was the right one. And I got about 20 feet into this path, and it's all dark and cool, which was a relief because it was kind of sunny on this particular day. And all of a sudden, about 5 feet away from me, exploded a female pheasant. And yes, my heart was in my throat for a moment. And then I was happy and wished I'd gotten a picture of that. So hard to get that. So there's lots of wildlife around. I was happy to see it. She was probably keeping her chicks, her second brood, cool, and they probably scattered in 7 different directions. So this is a short path, and as you get to the end of it, you come to this right on the ground, right on the other side of the wall that's going to lead out into the marten field, a little pile of bones. And again, I thought, how fitting if I was coming from the marten field into this path to get to the cemetery. I think I would know I was on the right course if I saw a little pile of bones sitting there in the earth. This is undoubtedly parts of a deer, deer rib and vertebrae and things like that. So I didn't spend too much time looking at them, but I don't know, I found it sort of interesting. Now, this is where the path comes out, and that little pile of bones is just on the other side of the stone wall here. So if you went through the stone wall where it's open, you know, you're not going over, there's an opening, you would be stepping on those bones. We're in the upper corner, what would be I guess the northeast corner of the marten lots, and this stone wall runs along that way, and the house, the marten house, which is privately owned now, is just on the other side of the stone wall. So you're way up in the upper corner here, and the path takes you this way, but when you come out, if you look towards the fields, this is the view you get. So this is West Side Road over here, and these are the marten fields, and you'll see as we're going to take off and go this way right along the edge of the cut area until we get to a path and get another look at the marten fields. And you can really get a sense of how these are being managed right now. That these land is being managed for a meadow, a wild meadow. And so they just mow along the edge of the stone walls, wonderful walking paths. And then the grasslands are growing, and then sometime in the winter we'll get its mowing, and then it'll start all over again. And lots of what you see here is switchgrass, native warm season grasses, and goldenrod. And to come by this particular site in mid-September is just to look at a blanket of golden flowers. It's really beautiful. These are these stone walls have been there for quite a while, and they go every which way. It's quite beautiful. And the lichens on these stone walls are incredible. The patterns, I mean, I could be it's like a Rorschach test. Like, what do you see in that? It's just beautiful. Green, again, a green shield lichen, which is a type of lichen. And over here, the gray lichen, usually you see little spots of gray lichen. This whole stone is covered with gray lichen, and then a few little green lichens on top, green shield lichens on top. And if you go back up towards where the edge of the field, where there's trees, or on the other side of the stone wall, you look up, and you've probably seen this in various places around the island. You see this bushy beard lichen. It's up in the tree. It happens to be a lichen that likes full sun, and it has some protective chemicals in it that protect the algae, the photosynthesizing agents of the lichen that protect it from the UV of full sun, sort of like having its own sunblock. So, but a beautiful bushy beard lichens, you see them all over. Deer do like to eat these, so you'll only see them on branches for the most part that are higher than a deer can reach. Not right nearby where that bushy beard lichen was on the other side of the wall, which is a cedar tree. Again, another wonderful tall tree. Used to be quite a lot of cedar on the island, and could be. This is a great area for cedar, except that deer do like cedar. So for the most part, if the cedar makes it to be taller than a deer can reach, then it has half a chance. And most of the cedar that you'll see around the island are bare of needles for the first 4 feet from the ground up, and then it branches out. So we've had maples and American horse chestnut, quince and cedar, very different kinds of trees on this walk. And then as we come down this path, we're coming to the end of the path where it intersects with Old Mill Road. So you could enter backwards, whoops. You could enter backwards and just do the walk we did in the opposite direction. But for us, we're gonna go along Old Mill Road and go back to our, those planes are loud. Go back to the our starting point, but along the road we'll see a very typical flower that's just hitting its stride right now, chicory, also known as ragged sailor, these beautiful blue flowers of field. And to me, first of all, if you've ever picked chicory to take home and put in a bouquet, you know it doesn't last 2 hours. Closes up and that's it. So you have to enjoy them in the wild. And chicory looks the best on a cloudy day. The blue just excels when the sun is not too harsh, a nice cloudy day. So, but a pretty plant. And along the side of the road, I noticed a little activity, and on the leaf was this pond hawk dragonfly. And I'm just starting to get interested in dragonfly. Well, I've always been interested, but I'm just starting to have enough patience to try to figure out one from the other. And this is the eastern pond hawk. The male, this is a female. The male would be blue. So you might want to identify them as two different species, but no, just the same. And dragonflies, we'll see some others. They're quite amazing creatures. And then we get back to kind of where we started, only on the other side of the road. Is now you could stop. This could be the end of your walk and save this particular walk for another day, but we're going to do a little add-on here. This goes into a trail that goes along property that or easements that were given by the Wood family, Gary and Ash families. So it doesn't really have a name. I call it the Peter Wood Trail. I guess when it was first being, the Greenway was first being developed and created, it was referred to as the link. In other words, the link from Old Mill Road to Cherry Tree Hill. Now, if you start up the trail, it's a very short area that comes out in this spot. The road is not too far from here, so it's this sort of covered area. And then you come out to this more meadow-like habitat. Oops. And on either side, at this point, there's some wonderful horse fencing and horses. So I know that Robin Villa keeps her horses in this area. And right now the horses are in this side where the shelter is, and the other side is growing grass, and I'm sure eventually she'll move them off. She rotates them among these fields. So if you're missing a view of a bucolic horses, this would be a good walk for you. In this meadow, you'll see, as you see in many meadows right now, Queen Anne's lace. I like this picture because it shows the form a little bit underneath of all the structures, almost like an umbrella with all those spines holding up each little panicle, each little floret, and then even downward ones. Here's a better view of it from the top. Queen Anne's lace is kind of domed at the beginning to be wide open for fertilization. In the middle of a panicle of Queen Anne's lace is often this dark reddish or purplish flower, an individual flower. This plant gets its name from Queen Anne, who supposedly loved to tatting of lace, make lace. And that red flower, at least in legend, is meant to indicate a drop of blood where she may have nicked her finger with the tatting needle. But it's really not known the purpose of that flower, and not all of the heads of flowers have it. Most of them do. And there's some hypothesis that it's to help attract bees and other pollinators, the color, although it's not really that red. But there is variety, I noticed. and others have hypothesized it's just, you know, a genetic leftover that doesn't have any purpose at all. So another plant that you'll see in this area, and I had to kind of look closely because this tan are stems of grass. So this is very short so far. This is just growing. This is a northern blazing star. And then I happen to know this particular meadow where the path actually walks right through it. There's many, many of these green plants right now that you can hardly see because they're shorter than the level of the brown grass. In 3 weeks, we'll be much taller than the brown grass, and we'll be supporting those beautiful pink northern blazing star flower heads. So that is, again, a protected flower. Again, like Queen Anne's lace and many of the flowers that we've seen, really love dry, sandy, poor nutrient soils. And northern blazing star. Again, I took this walk, as I said, last year, towards the end of August, and was much richer in blooming flowers, and a great time to see the northern blazing star in this particular area. Now, we've just come up from, let's see if I can get my pointer. We've come up through this sort of open meadow land, and then we're going to cross over Stonewall and then walk down. The path will continue this way. But if I stopped here and look back, you see this bench. This is Peter Wood put this bench here. I guess some people call it Peter Wood's bench. There it is. It's a beautiful spot. You can't tell on this particular day. It's a little hazy, but you can usually see Montauk from here. There's always a breeze, and the bench is provided for people to just sit and take in the breeze and the view and listen to the hum of the bees and whatever dragonflies are around. And it's really a very peaceful spot. It's got, in addition to this wonderful view, big giant erratic boulder right here, covered in lichens, of course. And again, just a big boulder left in the landscape by the retreating or melting glaciers. And if you look more closely at the other side of the boulder, you'll see that it has actually been carved with the initials of Peter S. Wood and his wife Shirley Wood. Her dates are there. His is waiting for one more date. But a very peaceful, lovely spot for people to rest. And I often have thought this walk, because it's fairly short, fairly open, and fairly flat, would be a great walk if you were convalescing and needed to get out and get a walk, but weren't up and down traipsing over the hill and dale of Block Island. You would get all the wonders of being out in a very short, easy distance. So keep that in mind. And then we'll go onward. So we've come over the little stone wall, which was right about here. And there's this big giant meadow. And the path takes you right along, straight down the edge of this meadow. Stone wall and shrubs on one side. About halfway down this meadow is this tree, which is a hawthorn. And here is in the other photo, here's the hawthorn. Looking at it from the other side. So we've come from here and walked this way and turned around to look at the hawthorn there. And again, how did I know it was a hawthorn? Because look at those spikes. Those are typical hawthorn spikes, and they can hurt. Excuse me for a second. Gotta have my coffee. And the hawthorn also has a few little berries. It's really quite an interesting tree, but you don't want to be on the receiving end of those spikes. Now, as we went along that path, I took another, another picture of a dragonfly. It's not a great picture. It's a little out of focus, but because this dragonfly is fairly large and visible, easily seen, with very distinctive markings. It's called the Halloween pennant, It has they have basically 3 bands of markings. Here's 1, here's 2, and then the third one is close to its body. And it's nothing else looks like it. It's very distinctive. If you see a dragonfly that looks like this, you are seeing a Halloween pennant. And it spent a lot of time right at the tip of one blade of grass, like hay, like a Kentucky bluegrass. So it was a big brown head of grass seed. I don't know what it was feeding on, but it was there. But it was kind of windy and I didn't quite get it perfectly in focus, but you can tell what it is. And if you see anything like this, you know that you'll be seeing a Halloween pennant dragonfly. Now, if you continued down the path that I indicated before, go straight down the edge of that meadow, you'll get to a point where, oops, I keep doing that. You get to a point where you go over a stone, and again, it's cut, so it's easily, you can easily get by this, get over it, step down from it, and you're going from the meadow on this side down into the shrub path. And again, so this whole walk has been sort of interspersing of open fields and open paths to more closed-in shrubby paths. And so now this very last leg is in the shrubs. It does follow a stone wall, so there's lots of things to see along the stone wall in terms of insects and other plants. Lots of invasive species in this particular stretch. I don't have pictures of it, but there's great bullbriar and Mila minute weed, honeysuckle, bittersweet, the invasive rose, all kinds of wonderful, annoying things that produce shade, which sometimes is all you need. So this is a short stint, and then you get to the end of this, and this is where you end up, right here. And you're above the street. This is Cherry Tree Hill, is also known as Kunamis Road, right? Over by Robin's Hollow would be in this direction. And there's a stone wall, you have to step through it. Again, it's open, so you can step through it. And then it has a long fence that protects you, and you go down to street level. And then again, here you're looking at this photo, you're looking at it from street level, where you've probably noticed this as you've driven by and sort of wondered, where does that go? Well, you just go up the hill behind the fence and you get to this spot right here, and then you get into the path right here. And in this part, you can see if you still hadn't had enough walk, you could cross the street and go to the next link of the greenway that will take you into Robin's Hollow. And this is a very interesting little link of Robin's Hollow. I'm not going to go on it today, but it goes in here and takes a left, and it goes down a very deep bank, and then up a deep bank and down and up, and then you join up with the path at Black Rock. So that is kind of the end of our walking trail. There are things to do in August, all kinds of things to do. Let's see if I can move this out of the way. August is when the dragonflies abound on Block Island. They're everywhere. They're in the field. They're very specific species for field and meadow and for wetlands and for Andes Way, salt marsh, and they are amazing to watch. This is a blue dasher dragonfly. Its eyes are pretty amazing. They are actually green, but because of the angle of this sort of dome of compound eye, it's reflecting red along the edge. But a beautiful creature, I think. And right now, if you go around the roads of Block Island, you'll see tucked in here and there Turk's cap lily, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful lily, just growing here and there. This particular one was near Lakeside Drive. There's one on the bank on Old Mill Road, and you just keep your eyes open, and they are in full bloom right now. And there were several of these plants and each plant still had several unopened buds to go. So Turk's cap lily is one of the great plants of August. And then let's see. So this is what you have to look forward to in August. The blackberries are turning black. And this was taken on Thursday last week. And I'm sure that some of these blackberries have already been eaten by birds or wildlife or past ripe. The red ones are there. It's time. This week should begin picking blackberries just about anywhere. And if we're lucky, I think a little rain will do them good, followed by some sun, and they should plump up quite nicely. So get those blackberry pie recipes out. It's time to start collecting blackberries. And the other thing that you might want to do in early August, like today, is appreciate that we had the full blackberry moon. So the full moon is happening later this morning at 11:59 a.m. So obviously you won't see it, but it should be brilliant when it comes out of the sea tonight. And the names of moons are named for the culture. Every culture has names for the moons. We usually fall back on the Native American names, the full buck moon or the full strawberry moon. But there's some very old English names, the full Yuletide moon. The name of the moon reflects the culture that is naming it. And I've long been a proponent of naming the full moons on Block Island for the Block Island culture. And I think that this early August full moon has to be the full blackberry moon. So enjoy it tonight. And one of the things to enjoy in August is down at the bottom here, because I couldn't quite fit it all in, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that the Block Island Maritime Institute has got its Tuesday lecture series going, starting, I believe, this week. And there is blockislandmaritime.org, their first lecture, and you're going to have to join virtually, so you need to register. Will be with Carl Safina, who did speak last year and is a great speaker. So, and there's some other great lectures planned by the Block Island Maritime Institute. So we like to, we think of us as one conservancy promoting the work of all the organizations. And there goes another plane. The planes are going to do me in this year. All right, plenty of things to look forward to in August. And then I end with my little mini bird checklist from the walk. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments or corrections.
Thank you, Kim, for that mention of the BIMI lecture series. That was very nice.
You're welcome, George. Hope to be there.
Tomorrow night, the connection might be a little bit strange with the storm coming, but hopefully it'll be okay.
Good.
Great. Well, that was wonderful, Kim. Thank you so much. Some trails I haven't been on in a long time. Anyone have any questions or comments or?
Yes, I would like to know how I can watch a recording of last week.
Oh, they are all, I'm going to give the website, I'll put it in the chat, but we are recording and we've uploaded the previous recordings to natureblockisland.org. I'm going to type it in the chat so you can just grab it from there.
natureblockisland.org.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
No, I was just going to, as a sort of overview of this walk, I just said, as much as I like doing this today, I think this particular walk is going to be more beautiful in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So if you have the opportunity to be on Block Island, I think mid to late August, early September is the time to do this walk, just for its beauty's sake, not for any other reason. Or as I said, in the winter when you're trying to get out of the wind.
I just want to say hi, George Davis. I only knew you as Dave. Can George hear me? No?
Yes, I can. That's, of
Oh.
course, what my parents called me.
Right, because Jean and I were good buddies. Holly Hopkins, so I taught with your mom.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, that was a long time ago,
That was
wasn't
a
it?
very long time ago, Dave.
Thank you for saying hi.
Yeah, good to see you on the island.
I will mention it to her when I talk to her next. We do
Oh,
Zoom
good,
chats.
okay, yes. Because she's not in Mystic anymore, is she? Well, we should talk some other time.
Yeah, probably so. Yes, Rockport, Maine. We'll leave it there for now, Holly. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Tell her I said hi.
I'll
But
put you
Kim,
in charge.
yeah, last week I couldn't see your program because I was doing my own program for the Peabody Museum, a Zoom thing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but are there still horseshoe crabs at Andy's Way?
Oh, yeah.
Still babies? Because my spider crab ate all the 2 that I brought home, so I don't have one anymore.
Well, they're still there.
Oh, good. So I'll have to come out soon.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk later.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
Kim, where are we going next week?
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good question.
I should know this, shouldn't I?
I should too. I think it won't take me a minute. I think we're going to southern or northern part of the Clayhead. Let me
Oh,
just see.
great.
Next week is the 10th. We're going to Clayhead. No, Clayhead South.
Okay.
The next 3 weeks are going to be the 3 different parts of Clayhead: south, middle, north.
Wow.
And then the last one will be the Breedland. So,
Great.
but I can't remember the order unless I look at my notes. All righty.
All right.
Well, if people have questions, they can always email me or drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I think we'll say good day.
All righty. Well, thanks so much, Kim. We'll see you next week.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay.
Was
Bye, everybody.
Great.
Bye,
Oh, Nancy
everybody.
Russell, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank